Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Don from 1A Auto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And the next time you need a part for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. Thanks.
In this video, we're going to show you how to replace front struts on this 2007 Pontiac G6. Pretty much the same for any 2005 to 2010 G6 as well as the Saturn Aura. We're going to show you the right-hand side. The left-hand side is the same procedure, and we always recommend that you replace your struts in pairs. And speaking of struts, you'll want to get a nice new set of loaded struts from 1AAuto.com. We sell both brand name as well as private label. Jack and jack stands, 10, 18, and 19 millimeter sockets, ratchet and breaker bar or a pipe for some extra leverage, an 18 millimeter wrench, and a hammer. Start out by using just a socket to loosen the lug nut covers or the wheel cover, as in this case. We're going to use impact or air tools sometimes. If you don't have the benefit of air tools, just start with the vehicle on the ground, loosen the lug nuts, then raise and secure the vehicle and remove the lug nuts, wheel and tire. You can grab the suspension and turn the wheels, or turn them with the steering wheel, and there's a 10 millimeter bolt that holds the brake line bracket to the strut. Remove that. There are two 18 millimeter nuts on the back side of the strut. You want to use a ratchet. Using a breaker bar and a pipe or something here for some extra leverage might be in order, but you can see on our vehicle they come off with just a good amount of force. Use an 18 millimeter wrench to grab onto the nut that's part of the stud of the stabilizer link, and then use an 18 millimeter socket, loosen up the nut, and then it comes off. Use a hammer. Just be careful not to damage the bolts too much. You might want to put a nut on the back of them, and although ours came out pretty easy, and just drive those bolts right out. Heading up top underneath the hood, there are three 13 millimeter bolts that hold the top of the strut in place. And we'll fast forward as we remove those. You can remove two of them and then just loosen one up most of the way. And as you're taking that last nut off, you can just kind of keep your hand on the strut, and as you take the nut off, you'll be able to lower the strut out. And to put the strut back in place, and yes, you probably will notice that we're just putting the old strut back in. The struts in this car were in fine shape, and so we're not usually ones to waste putting a new strut into a car that doesn't need them. We're just kind of doing this to show you how to do it. But you put it into place, start one of the nuts on top, and then start the other two, and you can tighten those up. And the top nuts, you should torque to foot-pounds. Back down under now, lift your brake hub assembly and steering knuckle back into the strut. You can kind of force it in there, and you put one of the bolts in, just kind of put it in a little bit, and then as you move the knuckle around in the strut, you should be able to get the bolt through. And then make sure you put the bracket back in place, and you can get the second bolt through, and if you like, use a hammer or something just to drive the bolts all the way through. And it should be noted that we do recommend an alignment after you do this, because the movement of these struts is something that affects the caster and camber of your wheels. You torque those nuts to 85 foot-pounds. Bring the sway bar link back into place, and should you possibly feel the need to replace those sway bar links, 1aauto.com, we sell those as well. But then use a 18mm wrench and an 18mm socket and ratchet to tighten up that bolt, and that bolt should be tightened somewhere around 70 to 75 foot-pounds. Put the bracket that holds your brake hose back into place and start the 10mm bolt on and tighten it up. Reinstall the wheel. Put the lug nuts on by hand first just to make sure you don't cross thread them, then tighten them preliminarily. Put the vehicle on the ground, torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds using a star pattern.
Now reinstall your hubcap, and I'm going to do that with that 19mm socket, and I'm just going to screw them in by hand. Also want to make sure that you line up the valve stem with the notch in the hubcap for the valve stem. And I'll go ahead and fast forward through that.
We hope this helps you out. Brought to you by www.1aauto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet. Please feel free to call us toll-free 888-844-3393. We're the company that's here for you on the internet and in person.